Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Alan.
Morning, Alan.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Bud. Up early?
Good morning. It is early.
Were you not supposed to call me and get me up before now?
Maybe.
I was up at 4:30 and I decided it would be a good idea to lie back down for just a few minutes. And yeah, well, here you are. What's the weather like over your way, Bud?
We've had some afternoon showers, been in the upper 80s. Not bad at all. How about down there?
Just terrible storms the last couple of days.
Yeah.
Last couple of nights, really. Let me see who all is. I think we somehow lost Doug. Doug, are you there? Nope. Well, that rather puts a crimp on the day's plan. As I mentioned in the notice I put out, Doug Brownlee's one of our Southern Hemisphere folks who is new to macro, and was asking about a recommendations for a complete setup, everything you need as a beginner to get into macro photography. And I deliberately didn't ask him a whole lot of questions when we first met, because I wanted to do that with us all together so that you could hear at the same time I was hearing what his interests were, what he planned to do, what equipment he currently had, what experience he currently had. And the idea was going to be that we would, as a committee, put together a kit for him and then use the input from everybody to put together maybe 3 kits for different price points. And I can put all that in a document to share with the larger group. But we don't have Doug. So should we do that anyway? Or is there something else that you'd like to spend the time doing today? Jump in. It's a small group, so we'll just we'll take it as the comments come. What do you think, Bud? You're on the screen.
I think it'd just be interested to go over very quickly what some new person to the world of macro would be interested in doing. I mean, you've seen what I've done in a year and a half or so. I mean, it's all about how to get into it. And I think that going through the camera and why full frame versus
would you do it the same way?
Do I do it the same way?
18 months down the road, would you go full frame DSLR? I'm not sure I would.
Yes. Well, the reason that I like to do it is because I use it for other things besides macro, and I can always go to the smaller frame rate on the camera. It lets you reduce it just like a smaller frame rate camera, smaller pixel camera would do it. So
yeah, I think I would be worried about the fact that Nikon's not supporting DSLR anymore. Canon isn't either. And if I was advising somebody who was just getting into photography now, I think it would have to be mirrorless. I'm even having to think about it myself, which is an awful thought. But well, what we'll do then is I'd put together some notes on the various points at which we'd probably disagree among the group, to put these thoughts together, but we'll get to that in just a minute. I think that there are a couple of announcements that I want to make first, and there may be some discussion comes out of that, and that will give Doug a little bit of time to show up just in case he's only late, like me. So we have two very important live stream events coming up that have underscored a philosophical problem with the way I'm doing live stream events. I think that there needs to be a distinction between a live stream event, which is in my opinion, the way I set it up, it's kind of what this is. It's a group of us getting together privately, offline from the rest of the community, to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. And that is what I think of a live stream as, a two-way street. It's not something that is meant for public consumption, so we don't make a video of it that goes to the wider audience. Then we have the events like Alison Pollock, who is coming up in about 2 weeks to do a live stream all about photography of slime molds. She is a fungus photographer, and she's world renowned. She has a huge following, and she's a big name in fungus photography. Now, what that it shifts the attention to her as opposed to us as a group, and that is something I do want to share with the larger community. It's something that really needs to be on YouTube and other platforms like it, where our faces aren't shown. We have a moderator, we have maybe a guest panel, but the idea is we're focusing on Alison's ideas, Alison's photography, your questions, of course, but it's more of a macro community conversation with somebody specific. That's a whole different thing. And I think what we're going to have to do, and I haven't worked this out with the board yet, but I think we're going to have to make a distinction for these two types of event and use a different platform for them, because Zoom is not the platform for these larger events. I've run into this already, because with Alison's talk coming up on the 13th of August, she has 40,000 Facebook followers or friends, whatever they're called, and she's going to invite them to come.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, well, I'm
Little tiny postage stamps for pictures.
But that's the thing. This is a meeting format that is not made for having 1,000 people. It's made for having a handful, a couple of dozen, so that we can speak up and get the attention of everybody else. This is really a meeting format that we're in. And we need something different for Alison, because I haven't even told you about what comes after Alison, but I will now. There's another meeting that we're going to be doing, another interview. Has anybody seen the documentary I mentioned in the announcement, Green Planet? Has it come down there yet to the Southern Hemisphere? No? Green Planet is it's a documentary series from the BBC. David Attenborough does the narration, and it's a nature-based plant series. It's kind of like Blue Planet, which was his water-based series, and the videography in it is next level stuff. If you haven't seen it, when it becomes available, you need to. And the filming and the technology in it is just mind-blowing, and it will take your breath away. They do an article on the first series about ants, and they film the entire piece from the perspective of a leafcutter ant going into its nest and climbing on the fungus ball and feeding leaves to the fungus. And from the perspective of an ant now, they're moving around in the ant nest and up the tree and cutting the leaves and everything. Well, it turns out that this wasn't some big crew of BBC geniuses that put together all of this videography. This was the work of a guy who is something of a genius when it comes to motion control image capture. And the individual in question is called Chris Field. He's been doing this for some time. He's an engineer, but he is self-taught. And I got in touch with Chris, and we've had several conversations. And I invited him on the live stream, or I invited him to come on and meet you guys. And he very graciously has accepted. So I'm going to be having him on in September to talk to you about all of this new technology and what it means to photography. And he's also, believe it or not, this is probably the most sought after motion control time-lapse photographer in the world. He learned his macro from watching my videos, he says. So that's why he agreed to come on the program, which is a pretty terrifying thought. But he's going to come on, and we're going to have a panel when he comes on, because there's one of our people is a Hollywood producer, a special effects guy, Mike, that many of you know, Mike Canfer. He's going to join the panel. So is Rick Littlefield, Zerine Stacker fame. So we'll have the four of us on a panel, and that's not going to be like this meeting where we're all sitting around and talking. It's going to be a slightly more formal interview, so that we can get more covered and we can show all of the clips and the videos that he's going to have to show you. So that is the way I see things going, which is it's going to change the way we're doing these live streams, because if I'm doing one of those bigger events every month, which is my goal, that's really only going to leave one slot a month that we can get together. What are your thoughts on having those more formal events and then us getting together every other month? This is sounding like we're just doing less and less, but that's exactly not the impression I want to give. Instead, we'll just have a more formal event and then a less formal event, and we'll swap between north and south to make it more convenient for your schedules. How would that sound to you? Are we getting any nods here? I can't see. My eyes aren't awake yet.
Yes,
That's fine for Munich.
That is good with you, Rob?
hi, Alan. It's perfect for me. Thank you.
I'm going to put that down as Rob spoke for everybody and said it was a great idea. All
Alan,
right.
after all, I am in the Southern Hemisphere, and I beg forgiveness.
You are a fine chap for doing that. All right. Did by any chance? No. I'm sorry about the about Doug not making it. Bob, do you know Doug? Bud, do you know Doug? Doug?
I don't know.
No. Does anybody out there know Doug Brownlee? Met him?
No.
I wonder if he just left the group. He didn't answer my email yesterday or last week. Oh well. Okay.
Well, and if you need to, I can fill in for that position because I'm brand new.
Are you really?
You know, if you'd like to ask some questions and get what I have and that sort of thing, just for that part of it, anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that would be actually very, very helpful if you agree that the the idea is something that would be helpful to you, then I mean, the idea of discussing equipment. I don't want to spend an hour talking about beginner's gear if it's not what the group has any interest in hearing. This is your group, so now's your
Alan, I
chance.
have a question.
Yep.
Say, Alan?
Yep.
Is Nikon going to abandon the mirror camera,
Yeah.
or they're still
They
going
have
to support
they
it,
have
though,
announced
yes?
they are accelerating their withdrawal from support of DSLR.
Support or production?
Their production, yeah, they're not making them, and they're going to phase out all mirrored cameras, which was supposed to be by 2025, but they're now accelerating it, and they used the word immediately in the release.
But they're going to
Yes.
support, they're still going to support the cameras, yes?
Yeah, they'll support them for, you know, a long time, just like they'll still support stuff they haven't made.
So the question is, should I get a second D850?
No.
Yeah, well, the answer is I definitely would if I could afford it. I'm going to get a second D7500, which is my stacking camera. Definitely, because I just love
Because
mirror.
otherwise, I've got all these lenses that are no good for the mirrorless.
Well, they will be with the FDZ adapter, but I hate using adapters to mount lenses. But all your good glass will work. Apparently, they say, but I mean, there are issues. I think putting legacy glass on mirrorless cameras. There have to be, because you're changing the dynamics of the relationship between the sensor and the lens. You're moving it. So I don't know. If I could go out today and get one of everything that I use now as a backup, I would do so. I can't. So I just gonna have to hope they keep shutters around.
You can get some pretty good bargains, Alan, at the moment.
Well, we're actually seeing the price of the D850 going up after the
Oh,
announcement.
really? Yeah. Uh-huh.
I wonder if that's going to maintain or if it'll just be a blip. But the D7500 also has stayed high. How much is the D850 down your way?
Don't know. I'm a Canon man.
Sorry to hear that. Yeah. Canon's made the same announcement, though.
Yeah.
Well, I originally bought a 5D Mark IV for about 1,800 Australian dollars, and a couple of years ago they were selling for $5,000.
I think that when I looked at the mirrorless prices for the Z cameras, I was completely unprepared for the prices. Their APS-C mirrorless camera, the Z6, was $3,000. Does that sound right? No, $2,000, and the Z7 was $3,000, and the Z9 is over $5,500 for a camera, just the body. Well, let's start then at the beginning. Who is our newcomer? I'm sorry.
David
David?
Smith.
David, I thought that was you. You're just getting into macro, but you're a photographer already.
Not a professional photographer. It's a hobby.
Okay.
And I really have been enjoying landscape photography, but the few times that I've done macro, I absolutely love it.
Okay.
And I would like to slide more into that sort of thing. Just
Tell
it's
us,
like I said, it's a hobby.
tell us about your landscape photography. Do you travel for it, or do you focus on local?
I use or I take landscape photography when I travel. I don't travel for this photography. So
Okay.
I'm
How long
here
have
in the
you been-
US.
How long have you been doing that?
10 or 15 years, but it's just as a hobby. It's
Right.
not professional in any way.
No, I don't think there are but a handful of pro photographers in our whole extended group. I mean, people who do it for money. there's a lot of serious enthusiasts though, and
Right.
if most people who get into macro find that they are more enthusiastic than they thought they were once you get into it. What kind of camera do you currently use?
Right now, I'm on the very cheap end because this is one of about 30 hobbies that I have. What I have is a Canon T6i.
Well, T6i. Let me tell you something. One of the most respected macro photographers living today is our own Rick Littlefield, the guy that wrote the stacking program. His main stacking camera is a Canon T6i. So there's nothing to apologize for picking that camera. It's 15 megapixels. Yeah.
Yes.
I think it is. It's a
right.
it's a nice workhorse of a camera, apparently. Pretty indestructible. Are you thinking of staying with Canon, or do you not have any brand loyalty? I mean,
No real brand loyalty at the moment. I'm still working on that. My wife has an older Nikon that we got for her, but it was several years old, and I can't even remember what type it is at the moment. So before that, I used Sony. So I have no particular.
So you're familiar both with mirrorless and DSLR photography. You don't have a preference?
A little. I'm not that familiar with the mirrorless, but I am familiar with different brands. Yes.
One thing that we probably should cover right out of the gate is budget. It's going to be hard to actually put a number on, because the way most people buy macro photography gear is without knowing how much they're spending. You know, it happens over time, and it's only when you sit and add it all up you realize that you could have bought that car after all, but it sneaks up on you. But if you had to pick a ballpark number, what I threw out there was under 1,000, 1,000 to 3,000, or more than $3,000 for your first full rig. That is all the bits and pieces to do indoor or outdoor macro, or both. Those three price points, which one do you think's most realistic?
Probably the high end of 1,000, just starting out.
Okay.
Simply because at that point, I don't feel like that person is 100% dedicated to this. Just like me, I do woodworking, I do wood turning, I do general construction, electrical. I'm the jack of all trades in this part of the country. So everybody calls me when they want something of any kind. So I do a lot of different things.
Great. And I think you'll find a lot of us do. And that is a completely normal approach to not wanting to sink a lot of money into it, because no matter, and unless you're buying the top of the line the legacy glass, the best macro lenses you can buy, everything is going to lose its value when you walk out of Best Buy with it. So it's not an investment in most of the stuff that we use. So you have to be careful about sinking a lot of money into it. So would
this 1,000 include the camera?
Well, in this case, we're actually doing this for David. So we're going to use everything that he's telling us, which means we've now got a little bit more money to do the other stuff. But yeah, if he didn't have a camera, it would have to include that, because we're going to work within whatever when somebody contacts me, and this is the conversation I have with them when somebody joins Patreon and they get in touch and say, look, I'm brand new to this and I want to get a full kit. I want a bag. I want to do the macro you do in the studio and outside. What do I need? And I'll give them a list of stuff, and I will modify that list to what they already have, what their interests are. Same thing here. thank goodness he's got a camera, because if he didn't, that would rather destroy the budget, because we'd have to go find him a camera for $500 to have any money left.
Yeah. Alan, when you're speaking of budgets, used equipment also is an option. And the site that I have the most confidence in is fredmiranda.com.
Yeah. I have started using them since you told me about it. fredmiranda.com. I'll add that in the show notes.
Yeah, you can find both lenses and cameras, not specifically macro, but if you go and look for a macro lens, you'll find whatever your camera needs. If you're looking for microscope objectives, I haven't found any there.
Microscope objectives, it's definitely better if you can get a contact in that business, because there's no telling where some of this stuff's coming from, the used stuff.
Alan,
Yeah.
Alan, should we not be defining more what we all view as macro photography, which from my perspective is a 1-to-1 lens?
Yep.
Extreme macro photography, which is anything above 5 times, and then what I would like to call intermediate, which is especially with the lower 2.5 to 5 in that range, because your budgetary constraints are determined by what level of macro you want to embark on.
Right. And that's the conversation that we're getting into here, is what David wants to do with his macro, whether he what everything now is going to switch from the having a camera that you know how to use to what kind of lens are you going to put on it, because there's a branch point here, indoor versus outdoor versus a hybrid of both. And there are different lens recommendations that go with each. But yeah, I think it's fine to consider. I use just basically 2 definitions for macro, 1-to-1, and these days I also use 2-to-1 because of the lower macro lenses as being macro, and anything beyond that is extreme, just because that's the way historically it's been talked about. But you're right, that 2.5 to 5 and or the 2 to 5x lower lens has rather shifted that, but I wouldn't recommend that lens to almost anybody who is just starting out, but we'll see where this goes. So let's get back to David then. We've got a camera, you've got interest. What are you thinking you want to do? What kind of photography have you seen that made you think, I'd like to do that? I'd like to do this macro. So what do you think?
I've really been more interested in the 1-to-1 range. I love watching, of course, we're here because I like to watch you with your much more deeper macro photography, but I don't see myself doing that anytime
soon
in the very near future. That's far more advanced than what I expect. I do enjoy going out. I've got right now the extension tubes, reversing rings, that sort of thing. I like to go out in the yard. I like to just go out around in the neighborhood or around the area and take small macro photography, both insects, plants, anything that I think might be a pretty picture, just for my own purpose.
Handheld versus tripod.
Right now, I'm mostly doing handheld, but I do use the tripod, especially if I'm here in the very close area around the house and the neighborhood. If I'm out traveling a little bit, I usually just handheld.
And the other thing is studio versus field as a division.
I've really gotten interested in looking more into the studio part in the future. But right now it's all field is what I'm doing. But I do like the idea. I've watched the macro cage build and that sort of thing. I enjoy that. So I'll be building one of those myself in the near future.
the way it most often goes, in somebody who does what you're doing now and the interests that are pulling you towards macro, it almost always pans out that your focus is going to be on handheld field macro first, because
Right.
it's what gets us into it. But the first time you set something up on your dining room table and get that first 3-to-1 shot with a reverse lens or an extension tube usually tips the balance. So what I like to do is keep all options open without actually investing a lot of money in any equipment for tabletop just yet, and focus just on getting the best macro lens we can. What kind of lenses do you currently have, Dave?
Right now, what I mainly have is just kit lenses. The Canon
Which ones?
18 to 55.
Yep.
The 18 to 55. I've got one telephoto.
Is the 18 to 55, is that the really flat one that they make, or is it a standard size?
It's pretty much a standard size.
Yeah, okay, that's the one I thought. I think it's identical to the Nikon version of the thing. It has a button that you have to unlock to pull the lens out, right? I think so.
Yes. Not on the lens, but that's on the body.
Okay.
The release button.
Yeah, there's a release button on the Nikon 18 to 55 that you have to turn one way and it clicks, and then you can extend the lens. To my amazement, that lens actually turns out to be quite one of the very few zooms that actually looks good reversed on a little bit of extension. I discovered that quite by accident doing a video about 2 years ago, that at some zoom ranges, it's quite remarkable. It's almost as nice as the 50 f1.8D that I use. But I'm not going to recommend that we focus on that. I'm going to suggest that the first thing that we need to add to this APS-C DSLR camera is a lens. And I want to hear what the group thinks about the lens that a new macro photographer, mostly in the field, what does he need? What's he going to put on an APS-C camera?
Any 1-to-1.
Any 1-to-1?
Rawa.
Would you use a Canon lens, or would you use a third party, Tamron, say? You can cut the price you're going to spend on it in half by going with third party. But then again, you can buy a used one. What's the who shoots Canon? Nobody.
I do.
Oh,
I do.
You do?
I do. Yes.
Do you have an APS-C macro lens?
No.
Like Nikon has an 85mm design for their D cameras that is very, very nice. Does Canon have something similar?
I'm sorry, I lost your sound. Similar to what?
A crop frame specific macro lens.
No, I use full frame.
Yeah.
I bought a D5 Mark IV when Canon announced that it was discontinuing the mirror, the DSLRs. So I bought a second-hand Canon 5D.
I used my first one this summer for a month, and I loved that camera. Very big, heavy camera. Nice feel. Well,
Alan, I don't think it matters the brand, whether it's brand specific for your camera or not. I think the critical thing is you need a 1-to-1 lens, full stop. Whether it's full frame or crop, whether it's your brand or whether it's Tamron or Sigma or third party, I think the critical thing is whatever is within your budget. I think to have a 1-to-1 macro lens should be the first foray into proper macro photography. It's the thing that I did way back when.
Yeah.
And I think it shouldn't matter what brand it is.
Well, it
I think
does.
a
We're putting a
one-to-one.
list together. We've got to tell him what to go buy.
Yes, but Alan, you yourself said there are 3 price brackets here, and you can buy brand specific, secondhand, within the $1,000 or less,
Right.
and you can buy third party, new, fairly cheap one-to-one macro lenses now as well. So really, I think the one-to-one issue is the critical point here, and you find your own budget price range.
Right. There is no doubt. I'm totally 100% in agreement. In fact, I did a whole video on this very point that there is no alternative. There's reversed lenses, extension tubes, all of this is stuff to play with later on that you need. In fact, I'd go further than that and say you need an autofocus one-to-one lens. You're going to have plenty of opportunity to hone your manual focus chops as time goes on, and you'll want to do that. But at first, while you're feeling this out, get every bell and whistle that you can get on the lens. But I also can't put down a brand new 105 millimeter 2.8 lens because we don't have the budget for it. So
yeah, but
Alan,
Alan, the shorter focal length versions are much cheaper. Like, I mean, in the Nikon world, the 60 is a hell of a lot cheaper than the 105, and I'm sure that crosses all brands.
Yeah, that's really what I was getting at is focal length. Do you think that for a new person that using a 55 millimeter or a 50 millimeter macro lens is going to be a satisfying experience? I mean, you got
yes, I do, Alan. I do. I started out my macro world with a 60, and I have to tell you, I didn't even consider anything bigger than a 60 until I started having the problem with the proximity to the subject, and the light and the shadows was to me the next step. I realized that I needed to back off the specimen so that I could get better light. And I still maintain that the 50 to 60 millimeter cheap 1.1-to-1 macro lens from somebody starting out is absolutely perfect.
Alan, what about the Raynox? What about the add-on lenses like Raynox or NSI, just to see if you are interested?
I'm gonna circle back around to tabletop at the end, because it's my opinion that almost anybody who's going to invest this amount of money in it is going to at some point want to try something else on the dining room table. And what I would probably do would go with a finite microscope objective for those people who are interested, because you can invest $21 and a set of extension tubes and get 4-to-1 macro that way. But I mean, the first priority is to make sure that he has a full set of kit that he can use out in the field with his DSLR and his 1-to-1 macro lens. Is there any?
A lot of people are putting that Raynox on the end of their lens and using
I'm terribly sorry. Yeah, I was thinking more a different approach to using the Raynox, obviously. I don't usually recommend diopters to people unless they are unsure about how they're interested they are. If it's a very vague interest, they want to try several different kinds of photography and macro is one of them, then I'll suggest a diopter, and usually not even anything as nice as the Raynox, really, just to try getting close up.
And I've got a couple of those that I've been using already. It's kind of one of the things that got me interested. I feel like I'm one step beyond that. You know, I'm at the next step where I do enjoy it. I do, however, still enjoy landscaping. So a lens that I could kind of transition between those two would be helpful in a way, more like the 60 millimeter or 55, something around that size that I could still use for the other as well.
That's actually a great point.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's where I was going.
the person that's coming from photographing people, doing a lot of portrait photography, who's getting into macro, I'll usually recommend that 85 or 90 millimeter, the Tamron or one of the APS-C Nikon lenses. But for something that you can also use when you're out and about traveling as a landscape lens, yeah, that is a good choice. As Rob says, I would say it's an order of magnitude more challenging to light subjects at 55 millimeters than it is with a 105. And it's also less than half the price. And you can pick up an old, used 55 millimeter macro lens, some of the nicest macro glass you'll ever buy from Nikon. The old manual focus lens, the D, for what, 150 bucks, which you could actually use on your camera. So yeah, I think that you can save a whole bunch of money there. Do you have a camera bag to put all this stuff in?
Oh, I have multiples.
Okay.
My biggest one is a large backpack that I use, that I carry things in.
Is that a low?
It's just a large. No, this was a Case Logic.
That's nice. Okay.
Someone bought it for me as a gift, so I'm not familiar with it, but I do like it. It's very good to carry around. And
the reason I
can carry
always
my-
ask about a backpack is that if you're doing outdoor macro, you basically have to carry everything with you every time you go.
right.
Depending on what you end up doing, you'll find you're out in the woods, you need almost everything. What do you have by way of light, flash?
That was where I was getting ready to head next. The only thing I have at the moment is just a super cheap little Canon that snaps on. It's probably a kit. I did have a speed light. It's gone out on me. And so I've got to get flash right now. That's my issue that I'm looking at financially right now first.
Well, the good thing is, if you're primarily going to be focused on field, you can get away with one decent flash. Whereas if you're going to be indoors, you're going to need at least two. So we can start out with one, seeing as that's where your interest is. The options are to get a speed light that you can diffuse and reflect so that you can create a pool of light in front of your camera. It's the cheapest, the easiest way to go. And you know, any speed light, $150 bell, all the bells and whistles, Godox light will do that on camera.
Mm-hmm.
Another alternative is a ring light. If you're going to a ring flash with separate left and right rings would be the one requirement. You can get that for about 150 to 200 bucks too. I
do have a very cheap ring light.
You got.
I'm sorry.
Is it
I do
a
have a
ring
very
light
cheap
or a
one.
ring flash?
It's a ring. It may
Is
be
it
just a light, I think.
Ring
think
of
it's just a
LED
light, yeah.
lights. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a cheap one. Again, someone got for me.
Yeah. You won't want to use that. They
Right.
they don't put out enough light, and they put
Enough light.
of reflection on your subject.
Right. I've seen that already. It's the reason I don't use it.
My choice, it would probably be the third option, which is what I'm using currently, which is to use the Godox small flashes, the MF12s. They are
Mhm.
they're the small flashes that that come in a kit that allow you to attach a ring to the front
a
of
ring
your
light.
lens.
I've seen those.
Yes, and then the flashes themselves clip onto the ring, and you can position about 4 of them around there. So a 2 light kit would give you basically a ring light that would be adjustable. And I think that for somebody who already knows enough photography to know that they need a flash, something like this that can adjust as low as 1/128th power, and you can move the light for creative effect, is actually probably a better buy than a speed light. You're not going to be able to use it as a high guide number speed light though. If you go to a wedding, you're going to need more light than that to get the group shot.
Right.
What does
Alan,
everybody think on that? Yeah,
Alan,
Rob?
I found, I went down the path of the, I'm going back 5 to 10 years ago. I went down the path of the Nikon ring flash equivalent, the R1C1 system.
R1C1, yeah.
Yeah, and I found the best option is a hot shoe mounted flash with this little device.
Yeah.
So this little device, it fits over the end of your lens and it beautifully diffuses any flash you put in the hot shoe. And I think this is one of the cheapest, best options. And I still use this when I'm out doing field macro. I still routinely stick this on the front of my lens and put the flash in the hot shoe, and it gives beautiful light. This was from Amazon. This was from Amazon and is probably about 30 or 40 US dollars worth of diffuser. But it's designed for macro. It fits on the front of most lenses, and it's a beautifully diffusing filter. Cheap, easy.
There is a material that you can buy over here when you're moving house that's for wrapping plates in. It's foam that's compressed into sheets. I bought a roll of that, cut a hole out of it, sellotaped one end of a strip of it to the flash, one end around the lens, and built that thing. And I keep the piece of the foam in my bag. So yeah, it's a perfect solution, but it doesn't, it wouldn't help you when you moved inside if you decided to try some indoor stuff and you wanted to separate the lights.
No, it's specific for outdoor in the field macro, especially when you've got a short focal length lens and you want to use flash to get over the lighting situation. That has been incredibly useful.
Oh, no doubt about it. So we could say he's got a flash.
Yeah.
John, did you say you had a flash that worked?
I do have a small flash. It'll take me a moment to find it. I don't use it very often. There it is.
But when you do,
and it's just a cheap little. That's the only one I have left, other than the ring light. The other, my speed flash, just died on me. So this is all I have at the moment, which is ridiculous. But that's where I'm at.
Yeah, the problem is not the power that puts out. The problem is directing that down in front of the lens. What do you think, Rob? That looks too low for me.
I would think that if you're looking at a 50 to 60 millimeter focal length, 1-to-1 macro lens, you spend $40 on Amazon, you buy a device that clips onto the front of your lens, any flash will do.
Any flash, including that one?
I have no idea the power of that.
Well,
I have neither.
The power, I mean, I'm sure that the power wouldn't be an issue for close in stuff, but I worry about how low the flash source is to the camera. How are you going to get the light
Alan,
over the end of the lens?
It would be like that.
Yeah, Alan, if you look at the aperture of this device, if you look at the aperture of this device, the hole that clips on the lens, from this point to this point, any flash height would work.
Yeah, it would, but I'm saying you're not concerned about the fact that the rim of the lens, the edge of the lens, is going to block the light traveling from the flash. Generally speaking, I actually put a bracket that angles the flash, wherever I'm using, slightly forward to throw a pool of light down. That what you don't want is a shadow across your subject, which the rim of the lens can cause even when I'm using a diffusion sheet that's around the end of the lens, it can do that if the straight line of sight cuts through the top edge of the lens. I think that using the one that you've got is good enough for now. We can always add a flash later. Is that all right, David?
That's fine. Yeah. I mean, I can give it a try.
Does it flash every time you fire it?
Yes, it's pretty accurate as best I can remember. It, like I said, I don't use it that often. But the
does it take batteries, AA's?
Yes,
Right.
AA's. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it works. It's just that I just lost my other speed light, which was I'd had for many years. So I have not used this one. I haven't really done a whole lot since I lost that one. I actually been looking at the Godox what is it, TT 600 or something in that area range as a replacement.
The TT 350 is the best buy in small flashes right now. They reduced the price to $80 now in the US, and you can buy 2 of them for the price of a speed light. And it's all you need for macro. They're great.
Okay.
Tripod, you got one? Probably
Yes.
got 10, right?
Well, yes. The one I have now is pretty heavy. You don't want to go for a long hike on it, 5-10 miles, but it is a pretty heavy. What is it? Slick, I think is the brand on it.
Yeah. I know the brand.
A hefty unit.
That's an aluminum one, yeah.
Yes.
All right. There is nothing else that I would put on your list, and because of the fact you've already got a lot of stuff, I think there's room for you to get a better lens, frankly, than you're going with.
Okay.
Given the camera that you've got, who uses the Canon 100mm macro lens, the L?
Yep. I
Yes.
do.
What do you
Love it.
think of it?
Oh, it's great. Great lens. Yeah.
Is it it's a full frame lens, of course, but have you
Full
ever
frame,
used
yeah.
it on an APS-C camera?
No, I use it on my D5.
I do have. I suppose there's no reason you have to use it on a full frame. I've used my Tamron on a crop frame, but it certainly is optimized for using with the pixel pitch of the larger sensor. Definitely. Wonder what one of those costs used. Do you ever look at the market?
I think I paid about 1,200 Australian dollars for it.
Okay. Well, that's a problem, isn't it? Do they make an f2. They make an f2.8 and an f4, don't they? They make a less expensive.
I think they make an f4 as well. Yes. Yeah. Mine's the 2.8.
Yeah. Well, we'll look into that, and I'll put all this together for you, Dave. And I think that you'll come in under $1,000 easy, and I'll build this concept out for the different price ranges. I don't think there's any great revelations here on any new equipment. I still think that a brand new photographer who came to me today and said, I want to take up photography, I would have to suggest they get a mirrorless camera, though. I would feel bad about putting anybody in a mirror right now, not knowing what the future holds. What do you think, Rob?
Yes. I think I grew up in an era of film cameras, and the best thing in a film camera was a split prism focusing screen. I think manual focusing in a DSLR, before I got rid of my D850, I put in a third-party split prism focusing screen, and it made manual focusing in the D850 orders of magnitude easier. I think that the big leap here is the concept of focus peaking with a mirrorless camera. This, to me, the accuracy of focus peaking and manual focusing in a mirrorless was for me the big leap. It was the technology that said to me, I am now comfortable to get rid of my DSLR.
Did you use focus peaking in the D850?
No, I did in live view, but I'm not a big live view fan. I'm a through the viewfinder fan. And so for me, that's why I put in the split prism screen on the D850, because I wanted to increase my manual focusing accuracy looking through the viewfinder. But with mirrorless systems now and the concept of focus peaking, and you can adjust the power of the focus peaking, for me, this is a big leap forward. So I now, for the first time in my photography career, I don't own a DSLR.
Bud, what do you think about that transition? You and I have talked about this. Can you see yourself making that shift?
I do not. I think I'd probably go with a second camera. You know, at 75 years old, it'll last me as long as I want to go with it. I can do focus peaking, but what I find is most advantageous is using the live view in a magnified mode. You can go 2 or 3 clicks down magnified, and you can really nail the focus. You know, and especially I'm doing mostly studio, so I have a stack shot, so it'll drive through the focus all the way from where I want it to go. So even when I was doing landscape photography and teaching it, I find the live view with the focus, especially with a magnify of 1 or 2 or 3 punches, you know, you can focus in right where you want to go. And I've tried the focus peaking and was not particularly impressed, but you know, that's just me.
I fall right between the two of you. I certainly understand the appeal of focus peaking, and there are a lot of things about mirrorless cameras that are appealing. But having shot DSLRs for so long, I'm not sure I'm much in the ready to take on a whole new style of photography, because it feels different. Do you use that, Rob, when you don't have a DSLR, so you do use it indoors as well in the studio?
Yeah. When I realized I could nail focus with focus peaking, both in the field and in the studio with an automated focusing rail, that was when I realized, why am I hanging onto a DSLR when I can achieve the same degree of focusing accuracy in the field and in the studio with an automated rail with one camera?
Yeah.
And that was the point because I was always very nervous to get to a point where I was comfortable to get rid of the DSLR concept. And I have tried it once before, about 4 or 5 years ago, and I bought the D850 because I realized it wasn't the same. But now the accuracy and the fact that you can set the level of the focus peaking sensitivity according to the situation, I got rid of my D850 about 8 or 9 months ago, and I have not regretted it for 1 minute.
What are you shooting with?
Alan, I'm a Nikon Z7, Alan. I am in the age category of the 65 and above, and so, like I think a lot of us are.
That's strangely specific. I mean,
yeah. And so for me, I grew up in the era of film to DSLR to mirrorless. For me, I think the transition is going to be exactly the same. Mirrorless, I think I'm, and this is just my personal opinion, I think mirrorless is going to be the future. And I'm not surprised that Nikon and Canon have said they're not going to do these anymore.
No, I don't think anybody's surprised. I think I didn't want it badly enough that when I heard about it, I was disappointed.
Yeah.
I was hoping one of the two of them would hang on for at least till I quit taking pictures, but I think, yeah, it's inevitable. And it undoubtedly, well, it's the wave of the future, because they've decided it's the wave of the future, because they're not going to give us an
Alan, I will say this though. When I took out the normal focusing screen that came with the D850 and I put in a split prism, it was, for me, it was like I've come home again, because manual focusing through the viewfinder with a split prism on a D850 was like the old days of manual focusing on an old film SLR camera. And I think this is one of the things that I don't think is appreciated enough. It makes an enormous difference, because I think the standard focusing screen that comes on all modern DSLR cameras is just not accurate enough.
I don't know. I've never even thought about putting a split screen in the D850.
It was, Alan, it was fantastic. It was one of those I've come back home moments again. It was that easy to manually focus with a split prism.
So Rob, having not used a mirrorless camera, do they have an eyepiece as well as a rear screen?
You can get all manner of eye cups for the viewfinder. The diopter adjustments are fantastic. I tried my luck very early on with Sony, and I hated it, and I got rid of it within 6 months of buying it. But the Nikons are fantastic. I've changed the diopter setting. I've put an eyepiece cup on the you take off the rubber on the Nikon Z6, Z7 series. You take off the square rubber mounting and you put on an eye cup and you jam it onto your eye. It's fantastic.
It sounds painful.
No, it's
I have a Fuji X-T2 that I got for a specific reason, which is the only mirrorless that I have, and it's got all of the issues that people who don't like mirrorless complain about, none of which are on the Z series cameras. I can't justify the expense of the Z's right now. They really are expensive. The APS-C cameras, $3,000. No.
Alan, buy a second-hand one. The second-hand first-generation Z6s and Z7s are actually quite reasonably priced at the moment.
I haven't looked at them.
Yeah. And in Australia, we have a concept called the Australia tax. Purchases in this neck of the woods is not simply a rate of exchange issue. For some unknown reason, everything costs more here. But in the United States, you can buy very good high-end Z6s and 7s, not the generation 2, the generation 1s, you can pick up for very reasonable prices.
That may be what I have to look at. What lens do you use, by the way, on your 7?
I'm in the above $3,000 category.
Yeah, I know you are.
I use the new Z105 2.8.
Yeah, we talked about that once before. Is that a fantastic lens?
It's better than the F-mount version. Much better, really? much better. And it's lighter.
Internal focusing.
You have with the Z mount, you have dual stabilization. You've got lens stabilization and in body. It's fantastic. You can drop your shutter speed quite remarkably and get a sharp image.
You ever used that, Bud?
What is that?
That lens, the new Z105 f2.8. Have you looked at it? I haven't even seen one down here.
I haven't looked at any of the mirrorless lenses. I think that's the only one that'll work on.
Alan, besides the issues related to focusing, the in-body stabilization, the stabilization of the camera plus the lens, you can actually shoot handheld at the most incredibly low shutter speeds. It's just amazing. I mean, I've shot macro handheld at a 30th, 1/30th, 1/20th, 1/15th of a second. It's when you get used to these modern systems, what you can achieve is so much superior to a DSLR. The technology is really amazing, and it took me a while, but I will never, at 68 years of age, I will never go back to a DSLR.
Well, it's a fairly strong endorsement, I must say. I haven't really
But Alan, you've got to get one, and you've got to play with it.
Yeah.
And you can't read reviews, and you can't look at YouTube videos. You've got to do it yourself to see this. It's incredible.
Yeah, I know.
Does it have the adjustment for front and back focus errors on your lenses?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
The in-body stabilization and the lens stabilization, do they operate together?
Correct.
Can they?
Correct. They talk to each other. And so you can stick on a non-stabilized lens onto a stabilized body, and you won't get as good a degree of stabilization as if both were stable. But obviously the other thing you've got to do is you've got to remember to switch it all off if you stick it on a tripod.
What about a bellows?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that because I don't own a bellows yet.
Well,
So Alan, I've used my mirrorless with that horrendous Infinity Probes lens system, and I've actually got what I consider, for me personally, quite good results. But the results are not what I want to show publicly. And
well,
that
you
lens,
show me privately, though, right?
I will show you privately,
Okay.
Alan. But so when I stick the Z body with a non-stabilized lens onto a rail, I obviously turn off all stabilization because that's the recommendation, because especially in manual focusing, you don't need stabilization. I'm just talking
not that you
more
don't
about,
need it, it's actually moving the sensor. And
correct. It's disadvantageous.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about in the field macro photography. It's just remarkable with what you can achieve handheld with these modern mirrorless systems with mirrorless lenses. It's, unless you've tried it, I don't think you can appreciate what is available and what is achievable.
I have tried it with the Canon, which I had for a month this summer, and it is remarkable. There's no doubt about it. I just don't do as much outdoor field macro as I would like or as I used to. So it hasn't been a huge priority. Almost all of my work for the last 2 years has been in the lab. So it's been less of a priority for me, but I understand how it would be a bigger priority for folks who are spending half the time outside.
Yeah, Alan, I don't have, in my own home, I don't have a setup where I can dedicate lab studio type macro. Most of my macro currently is still out in the field. And so I'm coming from an out in the field macro photographer first and foremost.
Right.
My experimentation with lab studio photography is with that weird, very expensive lens that I'm still trying to get my head around. So most of my macro is field stuff. And that's why I say mirrorless systems are so amazing for out in the field macro photography.
Absolutely. And your point is really well taken. I don't think it's going to make any difference when you commit to a camera system. You're going to be able to do everything I can do in the lab with your system that you have now in the field. It's really just getting used to a slightly new system, and you know, I'm less flexible than I used to be when it comes to that. Guys, it is 7:07. We're going to take a 5-minute break because I only drank half my coffee and I need another mug full. All right, 5 minutes. Let's say, what's 8 plus 7? Quarter
15.
past. See you at quarter past.
Yes,
All
perfect.
right.
Okay.
Chat amongst yourselves.
I put something in the chat.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
In the bottom.
Where are you, Fernando?
I am from Uruguay, South America.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
What time is it there?
What?
What time is it now?
Now is 9:10.
9:10 in the evening. Yeah.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
in the
Right.
morning. I speak bad because I have a stroke some years ago.
Mm-hmm. You're doing pretty well, by the look of you.
I understand all, but I don't speak very well.
Mm-hmm. Right.
All right.
I learned a lot with Alan about macro photography.
I'm actually more in line with Dave. Most of my time is spent doing in the field macro photography, mostly handheld. I don't have a setup at home that I can easily establish a lab, and I have a lot of trouble with 5:1 plus macro photography. For me, extreme macro photography is not what I'm interested in at this time. And so I do handheld photography, whether it's insects, whether it's plants, whether it's small objects, doesn't matter. I think that I'm still at the stage where I'm still using a 105 standard handheld macro photography lens, either handheld or on a tripod. While I've dabbled in high magnification macro, it's too hard. It's too hard and it's too time consuming.
What did you use to dabble in it?
Sorry, say that again.
What did you use to dabble in it?
I got a little unexpected surprise from the Australian Tax Office one year, and I splashed out $5,000 on an extremely unusual
the
high-end
Pro.
macro lens.
Yeah, the Pro. Yeah,
That's the one.
that's the one.
I have to tell you, as much as Alan poo-poos it and is negative about it, I've got some fantastic results with this thing, but I'm still not happy enough to show them publicly.
Okay.
I'm just the opposite. I'm a studio guy.
Yeah, no, I would love to be a studio guy if I had a dedicated space in my home where I could set this up. My problem is that every time I want to do something photographically in a studio, I have to set up a lot of equipment and move a whole lot of household items, and my wife gets cranky and it's too hard.
Well, there's one solution to that.
I know, but I think it's easier.
Let's not
It's
go
easier
there.
to not get involved.
that is actually a project that I have for this year. Well, it's going to be probably in the winter before I get to it. That there are a lot of people in your exact same situation, Rob, that really would like to have a dedicated space to expand into the lab kind of photography, but just don't have a place to do it. There's a concept that I put together using a rolling cart, a tool cart that you modify in several ways so that you can crank it up off the floor and have it as a very stable platform. You have everything on top and all your gear stowed away underneath. And it actually makes a very small footprint and is mobile. So that might be something that would help.
When you eventually put that together as a DIY project, I'd be very enthusiastic.
Yeah, it's actually, the plan is it's part of my cage redo, because I've stopped using an external cage because of, well, actually several different reasons, but I'm using a much more compact system now than I used to, and putting it on a mobile center is the next step. Those things are not cheap though. The really heavy tool chests.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
That's a camera's worth of gear.
Yeah.
Well, not a camera, but so we'll think about it. I want to get everybody else. There's a whole bunch of people here today who I talk to all the time that have not met the group formally, as far as I know. Would everybody be comfortable coming on the screen and saying hello and telling us where you're from?
Yeah, sure.
Why don't we, do you all have the same list of participants that I do?
1, 2, 3. I've got 5, 6, including you.
You can probably expand it.
No, I've got
10,
15.
11, 12, 13. I've got 13.
Yeah, me too.
What am I doing wrong?
Click on the arrow at the top.
Arrow at the top.
Participants tab at the bottom.
There's a view thing way in the right upper corner. It says view.
Yep.
Yeah.
Go to gallery view.
All
right. Yep. Beautiful. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bud, would you tell us where you're from, who you are, what you do, and specifically what your macro interests are, and then we'll go through everybody.
Bud Parrott, and I live in Georgia in a little town called Douglasville, just to the west of Atlanta. And I've been a landscape photographer. I'm a radiologist by trade, retired at this point. One of those catheter guys that put stents everywhere, but that was in a different life. So now I'm a bug photographer. And I love to take trips and go to beautiful places, but at my age now, that's my knees don't cooperate. So I decided if I was going to do photography, I needed to find a different way to go. And I stumbled upon Alan and his wonderful introductory and beyond videos. And so I did have a macro lens, and I was taking some stuff, but I was taking stuff tabletop. And I had a bellows I hadn't used in a long time, and I dusted it off and tried one of the inexpensive 4X optics. And you have to understand that I used to teach photography, view camera photography. So I was a large format guy shooting 4x5, and I took a few groups back into some of the Southwest regions in the US, which had fantastic landscapes. And I learned Photoshop and Lightroom, and ultimately ended up teaching Photoshop. So I can do post-processing pretty well. Found Zarine, also Helicon. I use both of them depending on what I want to do. Both have good points and bad points. You know, I would love to be able to take the stacks into Photoshop and use masks and align things there rather than doing it in Zarine or in Helicon. But when you bring them across to Photoshop, you try to align them and they don't align. So, you know, I can't do it that way as much as I want. But that would be my preference of how I would do it, because it just makes it so much easier. I've got all of the tools of Photoshop at my disposal, but I can't get the things to line up unless I go into Transform and do some stretching and this, that, and the other. So right now I'm using Zareen. It's the best of the bunch, I think. I've complained to Helicon several times and they just shrugged. So I don't know whether they're going to do it or not. But I got into lenses, learned how to use the L-Nikkor enlarging lens and the reversed. You know, I tried it both reversed. I'm an experimenter kind of guy. I like, you know, solving problems. That's what I've done for a lifetime. So, you know, you go in and you figure out what you need. If it doesn't exist, then you try to figure out how to make something, you know, and you try to get the smooth light that Alan is so proficient at, so that you don't get these reflections in the eyes of bugs. And, you know, you learn how to do your stacking and your retouching, and then you take it into post-processing. So all of these things are various steps along the way, and I can go on safari in my backyard and have a blast. But I bring them back into the house, I sacrifice them, I pin them, I pretty them up, I dust them off. I try to give them some personality. I just don't do the entomologist, you know, straight overhead or straight forward. You know, I'm looking for monsters in the garden.
But
what got me?
Do you have your lanternfly picture available?
Yes.
You want to share your screen and show people?
This is the Dobson fly.
Yeah, the Dobson fly. Or
let me pull it up and I can. Yeah, hang on a second.
I'm going to jump in, and I've known Bud for over a year now, and we've worked together. And Bud's a man after my own heart. He's something of an inventor as well, and has come up with a number of very innovative ways to atraumatically capture insects. And I'd love for him to address that maybe sometime, because insect collection is an art that yeah, he's definitely come up with some really cool ways of doing it using these gadgets he's dreamt up.
You want me to?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you screen sharing. Hold on 1 second. I thought I had already turned it. There it is. Hang on. Let me go to advanced sharing. All participants. Okay, you're good.
Let's see here. Lightroom Classic.
I want you guys to see this photograph because Bud sent this to me a couple of weeks ago, and this is a man who, when he first contacted me, had just started doing macro, and I want you to see what you can do in short order. If you,
I'm working on it.
Is it not letting you?
I had to go in and give it permission.
Okay.
It says I've got to leave the meeting to come back. So,
well, we'll circle back around then.
Okay, I'll see if I can get it going. Okay.
We'll Juan is next on the list.
Hi. I'm a retired engineer. I live in Spain, based in Madrid. Although today I'm not in Madrid, I'm up north in San Sebastian. I have had the opportunity to travel a lot, and I was a tourist photographer, meaning that, you know, I took pictures. I didn't know much about how to do it or care much about how to do it. And then when I retired, in 2020 and 2021, I decided to go to school. So I went to photography school, and at the same time, I was poisoned by Alan Walsh's YouTube. So I discovered macro photography, and then I got very interested in it. And now I am trying to emulate what Alan does, although I'm not that much into insects, but mostly into flowers. I try to make pictures of flowers in 1-to-1 or 2-to-1, whatever. As I said before, I bought this. I started using a Sony A7 R4, and then when I heard that Canon was discontinuing DSLRs, I bought a second-hand Canon 5D Mark IV, which I use most of the time. And well, that's it. I don't have a long history in this, so I'm learning a lot, and I blame Alan Walls for everything that happens to me when I take a
I get that a lot.
macro picture. Anyway, thank you, Alan.
Would you find the videos more appealing if there was less focus on insects as the subject, or is it immaterial to you? Is it the content that matters, or would you rather see some non-insect stuff?
I think it's the technique that matters. So I learn a lot from your videos.
Yep.
But yes, if not everything was insects, I probably would find it interesting.
Okay, I'm making a conscious effort to move in that direction. It's hard when you love insects like I do. It's hard. Bud, did you get your bug up?
Let's see if we can. I had to go back in and give permissions. You know how that thing goes.
Yep.
I think I've got it here. Let's see if we can share it. Can you see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Look at that, guys.
Very good.
Oh, geez.
Great.
Yeah.
That is
Monsters in the garden. This is an eastern Dobson fly. It's a 3-inch long insect, and this was shot with a macro lens because my El Nikkor enlarging lens was way too powerful. I had to back off to get this, and I can't remember, it was about 80 images stacked and then processed.
It is an absolutely beautiful photograph, and it's the colors, the angle you shot it from, everything is it's beautiful. And I wanted everybody to see that.
It's really great. Wow.
Well, thank you.
I don't think we have those insects in my neighborhood. I certainly hope not. 3 inches long. I love insects, but there's a limit. All right. Well, that's another beauty there. That's a Japanese flower beetle, isn't it?
The reason I show this one, Alan, is people may not appreciate, you need to see how the beetle is looking at you a little bit. Well, this was taken straight on down. I've got my camera in a vertical orientation on that block of wood I showed you.
Yeah, yeah.
And what I used was a transform in Photoshop for perspective so that I can enlarge the head end and shrink the tail end to make him look more like he's coming at you.
It's a very unusual perspective. At first, I didn't notice the species and from that perspective, but it's beautiful.
Back to you. Let me get where's the share thing turn off? Probably here.
Yeah, you should have control to just turn it off. And we're gonna move on down the list. And as soon as I get
There we go.
all right.
Thank you, guys.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bud. I appreciate you sharing that.
Sure.
Fernando, you're up.
Yes. Oh, okay. I'm from Uruguay, and it's a small country between Brazil and Argentina in South America. I learn a lot with Alan. I put in my website, I put in the chat the address. And I put a test of Alan in my website. I recommend you to learn, to read. And I have a stroke or some years ago. I don't speak very well, but I can write. And this is very, very helpful to me.
Well, I am very proud of the effort that you are doing, and coming on this live stream with us as you do is it must take courage to do, and I'm glad you do that. It's great to have you. It's great to see you looking so healthy and fit. And you're in Montevideo, correct?
Yes. Now I'm in Montevideo. In summer, I was in Piriápolis.
That's right. That's right. Because I knew you were not in the city. But has anybody traveled to Uruguay?
No.
Yes, I have.
Looks like a wonderful place, though. I did a virtual tour around there last month. All right.
I make some videos with a drone about Montevideo.
It was your
And I
drone.
put in internet.
It was your drone footage that I used for the tour that I went on. Yeah, it's impressive. I'm surprised you didn't get arrested taking those drone shots, though. It's illegal here, I think. Maurice, where are you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes.
I'm having terrible trouble with my camera. It won't work.
Not to worry. We can hear you loud and clear, I think.
We can.
I'm a silver top.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a silver top as well. Long since retired. Always had an interest in photography, but I got fed up with photography, just taking family photos, etc. But just as a lockdown project, I discovered your channel. I originally was interested in macro photography by searching for micrometeorites and wanting to photograph them. And but then after discovering your channel, I decided to build a rig for macro photography. So it's all based on Thor Labs setup. And I would show it to you maybe next time when my camera is up and running. And
Maurice, if you wouldn't mind, just if it crosses your mind, if you could send me a couple of pictures of your rig, just send it to my email so that I can add it to the Cage project. I've been looking for somebody who has a primarily Thor Lab setup. I'd love to see what you've done.
The camera I use, well, it's my wife's camera because I've never owned I used to have a Canon A1 system. And I've got the Canon bellows, which I've, after looking at your videos, I've bought the Nikon enlarger lens. And so I'm having trouble because my wife's camera is the Pentax K7. I bought a second-hand Pentax K1, which I'm using on the rig. But I'm having to make an adapter to get it onto the Canon bellows. There doesn't seem to be any
to get the camera mounted on the bellows.
Onto the bellows, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm stripping down various bits and pieces and making a new attachment point.
I have something that might work for you. I'll get back to you through Patreon.
Great, thank you.
I may have a part that you could use to mount the K7 or the K1 on the bellows.
My wife uses the 100mm macro, which is very nice. And I've got the lower 2 to 5 for the rig because I'm not sure which microscope objective I want to use, and being very expensive, I want to just get used to using everything at lower magnification. And I've also got the Godex MF12 flash units, but I don't like using them on the macro lens. There's too much weight. So I've made a rig, a very relatively lightweight rig to support everything. I can send you a photo of that.
Please do, yeah, because I don't use them on the lens, well, really, except to make videos, never.
Yeah, it's just too much weight and not enough adjustability. I used these little Joby arms, adjustable arms, and they seem to work fine.
Okay, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, and I've bought, there's someone in the UK who has one of these printing firms, 3D printing.
Yeah.
He's made diffusers for these MF12s, and they seem to work quite well. They just slide over the ends.
Yes, there's some people around here have done the same thing. I've done the same. They're very easy to diffuse.
Yeah,
the trick to get the most out of the MF12s is to use 2 separate layers separated from one another.
Yes.
And
so that's work in hand. But I think my main problem is getting my camera to work at the moment.
Yeah, well, that will kind of throw a spanner in the works with photography, getting the camera going. But I think
I'm going to have to upgrade the computer. I'm using a very cheap desktop. So,
has anybody in the group upgraded to a new Mac by any chance this year? The M1.
No.
It's astonishing the difference.
Yes. I have.
I did, Alan.
You having struggled with an older computer for the longest time with all of this new software for stacking, the improvement in the M1 is just mind-blowing. I can do I did a 400 shot stack last night in something like 10 minutes. Unbelievable. Well worth it.
Is there any advantage in using a Mac over a PC?
There is none when it comes to stacking, because the PC I mean, Xerine was written for PC. It was written for Windows. There's no disadvantage either, which you couldn't always say. I'm just a Mac user, so I'd have a hard time switching, but I don't think there's a performance difference. Bud would probably know better than I.
All the people I've dealt with that have PCs and they don't seem to be any difference. Once you're in the software, the stacking software or the Photoshop or Lightroom, there's no difference.
Yep.
It's just the speed of your processor.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Rob, you're on.
Perth, Western Australia. We are sitting at 20 to 9 Saturday night. I'm not retired. I have a very busy day job as a specialist general surgeon. Photography is my serious hobby. Hence, most of my work is out in the field and some is in a home studio. Didn't realize it at the time. I generated an interest in macro photography when I was a young child. My father had a camera called a Zeiss Contiflex Icon, and he had screw-on close-up lenses. And the photos that he was taking were fantastic, and I didn't realize it at the time. But as I've reached adulthood, for me, macro photography is the only real genre of photography that I'm interested in. I've dabbled in landscape. I don't like photographing people. I don't have the ability to photograph people. But the other aspect of photography is the opposite end of the spectrum. I've kind of had the astrophotography bug bite, and that's another very expensive aspect of photography. But macro is my love, and whether it's field, my backyard, or studio, for me, it's all one and the same. The enthusiasm for all the genres of macro are very real.
What got you into Astro, Rob? I hadn't heard you mention that.
I didn't. To tell you the honest truth, I don't know. I suppose it's very similar because I've always had on my iPhone all of the astronomy apps, and I spend hours at night in Perth, Western Australia. We are blessed with a lot of clear, beautiful, clear skies at night, and so I stand out there with my phone just looking at stuff. And so I thought to myself, well, if I'm looking at this on the phone, what's wrong with trying to take photos of this? And then I discovered you, Alan. I discovered there's some very serious astrophotography sites, and I kind of started following them as well. And so it's interesting for me that I've landed at both diametrically opposed opposites here.
It's not uncommon.
Yeah,
it's not uncommon.
I
There's
do
a lot
the
of folks who
same.
Bud, you do Astro as well, don't you?
Yes.
Are any of you guys familiar with the program Planet?
No.
It's one that you
I
might
think
want
I've looked at it, yeah.
Yeah, you might want to look at
All right.
Planet Pro, PLANIT Pro.
Okay, I'll have a look at that later on.
It's the best app for Milky Way prediction and sun up, sundown, light pollution.
Nice.
It does it all in one platform for, I think it's $1 or something for the app. Very good.
But Alan, I'd like to try and get you back on track with your 3 tiers of macro photography for a second, if I may.
Yeah, of course.
There are a couple of things that I've discovered through general photography websites that I think have an amazing advantage to macro photography. This is a thing called a platypod.
Right.
This is a lightweight aluminium plate that has a ball head mount in the center and has all of these other options around the periphery, which allow you to screw in bendy arms that you can attach lights to. And I found this little plate is the most amazingly useful macro lighting adapter, because you can just simply screw on bendy arms and attach your lights to the end of it and direct them in order. And in fact, you can also mount your camera in the center on a ball head.
Yep.
And there's some amazingly useful little gizmos, but I suppose one would look at the kind of $1,000 to $3,000 price bracket, because this company is US based. In Australia, these devices are not cheap.
How much did that cost you? I have the first one.
There are 2 versions of this. This is the big one, and this can hold on a ball head a DSLR with a 70 to 200 zoom lens very easily. This is the big one. There's a smaller one, and they're in US dollars are about $150 to about $250 price range. The company's called Platypod, and they make their own bendy arms, and they also make their own ball heads now, but they're universal. You can put anything on them. And I think for a macro lighting device, I think this is fantastic, because you don't need a cage. You don't need to mount your flashes on anything. Just screw in a bendy arm and attach one of those small rig kind of adapters, and you can put anything on them.
I have
Alan, I
Go ahead.
used one overseas because there are places that you can
Don't
go.
allow
Like
tripods.
Colosseum in Rome, where you
Yeah.
can't take a tripod.
Correct.
These don't qualify as a tripod.
Correct.
A
Yeah.
lot of folks use them for fungus photography and forest floor photography. They're a great platform. I looked
Yeah.
into one and I got a used one of the first versions, which is smaller than the one you just showed.
Yeah.
And I subsequently made one. I just bought a piece of aluminum and
Yeah, exactly.
and
Yep.
cut it out, had it drilled and tapped, and it's the same thing. It has adjustable pointy feet on it, and it
Yeah.
is a great a gadget to have.
Yeah.
I would think it would have to be in the slightly higher price range for the
Yeah.
newcomer, but yeah.
Yeah.
Can you mount it on a tripod if you want?
Yes.
Yeah. go ahead.
Yes, you can, because the other end has an easy tripod mount. In fact, I mount this on my tripod, and then I put my rail on the top of this thing, and then I have my lights coming out the front ends of this.
Yeah. That's actually a good idea.
Yeah.
Brilliant. What was the other thing? You said you had two things for the.
Well, this company does a whole range of devices. They do the big plate, they do a small plate, they do their own bendy arms.
Nice.
And then the other thing that I'm a big fan of, and they're not, unfortunately they're not cheap, are ProPhoto iPhone photography lighting units, because their lighting units, these are quite low end, and I just stuck on their magnetic diffuser. Their lights are drivable through a little Wi-Fi dongle on the top of your camera. That's not like one of those Godoxy kind of multi-channel things. You do it all on your phone. So it's a tiny little round thing that you mount on the top of your camera, and all of their different flash units are drivable through a phone app. And it's a very, very convenient lighting system. But like I said, these are the next level above lighting systems on a cost basis.
They just put out a new phone light over here. That's the
A2, the A2. Yeah, it's
That's-
about the size of a can of beer.
Yeah, a little bit more expensive than a can of beer, though.
Yeah.
You'd have to drink a few cans of beer to buy that light, I think. It's
Alan,
yeah.
I still use my R1C1 system, but obviously I use it behind a lot of diffusion, because they're a very harsh lighting system.
They're as harsh as the MF12s in that they're small spot light sources.
Yeah.
And the diffusion is the key for any kind of small light like that. And the ProPhoto is going to be no different. You have a small origin of light, you've got to spread that out.
Yeah. I think, Alan, I think this little $40 device is fantastic, because I can set this up, 2 of these with my R1C1, and get beautiful diffused light.
Agreed. I think that would be a no-brainer. That's a nice setup for sure. I hated the batteries in the R1C1 though.
Yeah. I still hate them.
Yeah, they're expensive. Those 1, 2, 3s or whatever they are.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, let's move on.
Difficult to get hold of.
Yeah. And that would put you in the 5,000 plus range, I think. David, was there anything you wanted to add?
Just I'm from North Carolina in the US. Like, as I said before, I've been a jack of all trades. General contractor, electrical contractor, plumbing contractor, mechanic, auto mechanic. For the last 30 some years, I've been the most hated, second most hated person in the local government. And
good for you.
First you have the tax collector is the number 1, and I'm the building inspector, which is number 2. I've got about 2 more years and I'm retiring, and that's why I'm trying to hone my skills on some of the things I want to do after I retire, which in about in a couple of years now. So that's good where I've gotten more and more interested in this. But
excellent.
Otherwise, that's about it.
Fantastic.
Hey,
Well,
Alan?
good to have you on board. Yes.
Can you see this?
It looks like a
This is
brazier from where
this
I
is
am.
the diffuser for the R1 system.
Oh,
It just
yeah.
snaps onto the R1.
Nice.
It's an
Right.
aftermarket plastic thing, and it gives great diffusion.
Did you
But
invent
this whole
that?
thing, this whole rounded part here comes and just snaps onto it. So if you're using the R1 and having trouble with the diffusion, this is a solution.
That's nice.
It's an aftermarket. It's not inexpensive. It's like $50, but it solves the issue of diffusion for you.
That's not something you 3D printed, is it? Bud?
Not yet.
I hear you loud and clear. Joachim?
Yeah, hello. This is Germany. Hello, guys. In
How are you?
Australia and US. Hi. I'm one of the part which is retired since January. And yeah, okay. I'm from Munich, and I did over my whole life project work, especially for airports, radar systems, stuff like that. But I nevertheless did make photography since 50 years. Fortunately, I had not to earn money with it, so I could do what I wanted to do and had no.
I'm getting some of your work while you talk.
Okay, good. And since the Corona stuff appeared, the 2020, the website or the YouTube videos from Ellen, I came up and I saw, okay, fine. That's a good stuff for projects in the lockdown phases. Yeah, and that's another thing that for the last 12 years, I could make for my last customer a yearly calendar, 13 pictures. I could decide by my own. And since I was traveling a lot and did a lot of nature photography, specifically landscapes, I was allowed to make my own calendar.
Nice.
And some of that stuff is already done with analog things. I think one of you guys told today that he did 4x5-inch slides the analog way. I did that same. I even did for up to 10 years ago. I developed them by my own, black and white ones. Scanned them in, and some of the pictures are in the calendar. That's the last picture show because I have now stopped. So there will not be such a calendar anymore.
Well, it's a beautiful calendar. I'm so grateful to you for sending that to me. It's lovely. The pictures are superb. It's right on in front of my desk.
It may get a collector's item because I said it's the last one.
Well, it's going to be staying in my collection, that's for sure. Well, it's good to have you on board. Thank you for coming today.
Perhaps what also may be interesting, because you had a lot of discussion today about going from DSLR to mirrorless. I'm a Pentax user, and you may know that Pentax has decided not to go to the mirrorless way. Pentax still committed to do DSLR for the next, how long as they may exist.
Yeah,
as long as Ricoh doesn't decide to shut them down. And I'm pretty happy. I have a K1, and I have the KP, which is APS-C. And the fun thing with Pentax is you can get a cheap old lenses, which are pretty good. You can mount them, M42, things like that. So it's plenty of material to play with. And most stuff I do with the K1 and stack shot, and yeah, okay. I spend some money with that stuff.
A lot of macro photographers use Pentax. There's one European macro guy that swears by Pentax. Gosh, what's his name? He has the site Extreme Macro Photography that's very popular. Does anybody know who I'm talking about? Engels.
Yes. I know him. I not personally, but I know who you are talking.
Yeah,
about.
He's been around a long time. He's a Pentax shooter too.
So for me, Pentax is fine. It's very robust. The K1 is like a tank. It's very, very heavy. So when I travel, I take the KP with me, not the K1. And it's tethered. I have a little small computer in my lab where I do all that stack shots, and it's directly tethered. Then it goes with the network. Then I go to my big fat desk copy here in my office, and then I have already all the data already available. And for
Excellent.
you, Alan, I will send you within the next 48 hours a new update to my testing of
Okay, good.
lenses.
I look forward
With a
to
moth,
seeing.
with the wing of a moth. So
Okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Send it on.
yeah, okay, good.
Jim.
Yeah.
Jim.
Yes. Hi, gang.
What's
I'm
up?
pretty new. I live not too far from you, Alan. I live in Northport, which is near Tuscaloosa.
I know it well.
You do? Okay.
I do. I photographed
And-
the viaduct there, the aqueduct, the bridge thing over the river. I was up there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Black Warrior River, is
Yep.
that the one you're thinking of?
Yeah, that train
Yeah.
trestle that curves around. and
Oh,
goes
yeah,
over
the
river.
old
That's in
ancient
Northport.
looking one.
Yeah,
Yeah. What's that? Yeah.
I know
that's
exactly
right.
where you
So-
are. Yeah, I know Northport well.
And I know why people in the South, like macro photography. It's all the bugs here. There's just a whole bunch to choose from.
You don't
Most
have to
of
look
them
very
seem to be
far.
in my house. So, so what I started back when I was in college. Well, first off, I am less than a rank amateur. I'm just really getting started in this. And what I come from originally, and this is a couple of decades ago, I was really, and I guess I'm a little surprised how many astrophotographers there are here. And that was my bag. And you have to be a man to be an astrophotographer because it's not easy. And I grew up in the film part of astrophotography. So, you spend all night long on everything has to be perfect because your aperture is open for an hour or 2 hours or whatever with film. And then, you find out, well, moisture got to it. So your entire night is shot. Talk about self-loathing. Oh, man, there's just nothing worse than that. But anyway, so when
So you decided to do macro instead?
Yeah, really. They release me on the weekends for doing anything. So I have to go back on Sunday night, but so you have to be a masochist. And so I got in. I took medical and economic entomology in college, and just one class, and I just loved it. And I absolutely loved it. And then, fast forward decades, and I don't know. I guess my interest here, well, let me give you a little more. I'm retired. I was the principal chemist for an oil company. And so I deal with things that are technology. And everybody else here is so good with this. I don't like technology because it's hard, and my frustration with technology is usually runs really high. And this is very typical in the way I do everything, including work. And that is that I love these pictures. I mean, I'm just, how in the world, the detail, and these ugly little bugs, and they have all of this, color. And so I think, well, I'll just go out and do that. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. And so I've been taking I have a 6D and I have a LOA, however you pronounce 100 macro. And so I just stick it on there and go and take a bunch of blurry pictures. And then I think, well, I want to move to where I can take some decent pictures. And of course, I've run into all the problems, not enough light. I'm not smart enough to position the light properly. And I'm looking for a rail, and I'm thinking, I don't want to do that. I just want to take a picture, but you got to back into it, you know, and you got to have all of this detail to be able to do it. So, so that's how I kind of stumbled into macro photography. And I don't know, I think once I actually work through some of the issues, I think I'm going to really enjoy it. Same way with astrophotography, you know, but you just, you know, you got to make you guys are really good at this. And I have to make every mistake in the book several times over before I take it, before it works for me.
Yeah,
And
well, we
that's
all
kind of-
did. We all did, and we all do. That's the nature of this beast. There are too many moving parts
Yeah.
to just walk right into it.
Mm.
And I think
Yeah.
everybody who does this realizes that is familiar with where you are on this journey. It's frustrating at first, but
Yeah.
you'll find out that there are a few key sticking points that once you get over them, it does fall into place. It does get a lot less confusing. But
Yeah.
get in touch with me anytime through Patreon and let me know how I can help you think through what the problem is wherever you are. That's one of the easiest ways to do it. It's one of the best benefits of Patreon too. I will help you.
Thank you. And, you know, my biggest problem right now is getting a good table. I mean, of all of the things, you know, we talk about lenses, I can't get a table that sits on my carpet that's extremely stable.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, it's this kind of stuff that it's the pits, you know.
I have a solution. In the world of audio, they use spikes to go through the rug onto the floor, little cone-shaped spikes. If you look for audio, you can find these screw-in spike feet that will attach you to the floor through the carpet.
Don't tell your wife about it.
Just don't move it around too much.
Yeah, don't drag it to the other corner of the hardwood floor. I've got some of those spikes on my table, but I'm doing a DIY thing this week on a platform that I'm converting to a tethering platform, which is going to be involve stabilizing a table. So you might want to watch that.
Oh, I would love that. And
yeah,
like everybody else here, I'm caught with a bunch of lenses, DSLR, and the mirrorless. I guess I'm going to have to go to I have Canon, and it's just you know, and I think I'm going to end up just tossing everything out, essentially selling it, whatever, and starting again with mirrorless, and I don't know whether Canon or Sony, you know, which is king, I guess. And, you know, I'm transitioning that, you know.
I can put you in touch with some people who've done that transition and can help you figure out the best way to do it.
I just went to the DxO Labs site. You know that site, DxO Labs?
Yeah. Yep.
And they rank the SLR, the D850 and the 7.2, the Z7.2 as equal as far as sensor sharpness.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
that's what I'm after. I think I'm going to play around with this. And then, like you say, I'm going to go after probably just start again. You know, I can either continue buying DSLR and eventually, you know, probably be overwhelmed or not able to progress because seems like everybody's going to mirrorless. And
let me make one point before you finish that. I take photographs about 300 days a year, indoor macro photographs. I shoot all day, most every day. I use one of two lenses and none of them were made for a camera. So, I mean,
is that right?
I use enlarger lenses and microscope objectives, and I use two of them particularly for 90% of my shots. I can't remember the last time I used a macro lens except to make a video. So you know, I wouldn't be thinking in terms of having to replace all your lenses. You'll probably end up buying a couple of lenses that aren't even Canon branded. They're just the sharpest possible lenses for what you're using in your rig. And I'll help you understand all of that.
Yeah, I need that because I'm just not smart enough for all of this stuff, you know, I think.
There's no smarts involved. You ask somebody and they'll tell you this is the sharpest lens, and that 50mm EL Nikkor enlarger lens, it puts everything else I own to shame. Sharp as a razor, that thing. You know what, guys? I just noticed the time. It's already after 8 o'clock. Holy mackerel. Let us quickly, I want to hear from
Yeah.
What's that?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just wanted to hear from Peter and Al and Moshe real quick to say hi, and then when we reconvene in a few weeks, we'll repeat the introductions for anybody that we missed. I see Harold has joined us. Does anybody else want to come on and say hi? Who's been skipped over?
Alan.
Yes.
Alan, if you excuse me, I have to leave you.
Absolutely.
So thank you
if you need
for all this wonderful meeting, and I'll be joining you, if I may, on the next live stream.
Absolutely, yes.
And I will continue watching. I'll continue watching those YouTube videos that poisoned me.
Before anybody else leaves, one thing: if you have a Facebook page or an Instagram account that you have people who follow, do me a favor and mention the Chris Field, the motion control guy, the videographer that does the documentaries on BBC, is going to be my guest on a live stream in September the 10th. If you could do that, I'm going to actually put a little announcement in the Patreon, and I'll send it to everybody. And if you want to, if you could spread the word to your own network, it'd be great to get as many people as possible, because this guy's pretty famous in the industry. I just wanted to say that before everybody went their separate way.
Alan?
Yes.
You're saying that he's famous in the macro photography area?
No, he does macro photography, well, macro videography at the real life videography. Did you see Green Planet? Green Planet, the David Attenborough nature series that just came out.
I watched David Attenborough whenever I can. I'm not sure if I saw that one.
When you see that, all of the videography, for example, the ant scene where he follows ants down into the ant nest, that was filmed by this guy. So he is a real life macro filmmaker at scale, and he invents the devices that does the filming.
Yes, I've seen those amazing close-ups of videography of macro.
Yeah.
I'm in charge of 2 camera clubs here in Boise, and I can get the word out to all of them.
Fantastic. Well, look out for an announcement in on Patreon, and it'll give you the date, the time, and a picture of the guy. He is fascinating. I spent a couple of hours with him yesterday. He's in Colorado, and when he faces a problem of filming an ant underground, he doesn't go looking for machines to do that. He builds the machine to do that, and he builds the lens and the camera so that he can get into that tight space. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. It's like, imagine me thinking up these inventions and then actually working. It would be, that's how exciting it is to see him actually making stuff that works. But I'll put an announcement in Patreon. Thanks, Harold. I appreciate it. Who have we missed? Moshe.
Me? Yep.
Go ahead.
Pete. Oh, yeah. I'm a retired engineer. Spent most of my working life working in hospital engineering with specialist air conditioning and things like that. Operating theatres and clean rooms and cytotoxic prep rooms and all that sort of stuff. Most fascinating work. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Anyway, I've been retired for some time. I'm now an 83-year-old struggling to learn. And when you get to 83, learning is a struggle, I can tell you. Anyway, I'm a Canon man, as I said before, and why I'm a Canon man is my first camera was a little Canon APS interchangeable lens camera, which is a beautiful little camera. I forget what it was called, an IX7 or something like that. And once the sort of glass you use tends to be defined by the first camera you buy.
Right.
So I'm still buying Canon. Macro wise, I've been dabbling with I got the Nikon objective, and I've been playing around with that. I've also got
the CFI plan.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, on a Canon bellows, which, by the way, I think could have come out of the same factory as the Canon bellows.
The Nikon one.
The Nikon. Yeah, so I can't pick the difference between them.
Yeah.
I've also got an MPE 65, which I've had for some years, which I've started to use, and I quite enjoy that, using it. I know sort of they come out for some criticism in terms of sharpness and so on, but I've had, I think, reasonable results with it. I got myself a lighting cage, and I'm playing around with that. I've got a stack shot and a few things like that. Anyway, I'm mostly doing indoor work because I find it difficult to get outside now. So
Where are you located, Peter?
I'm in a little town called Druin, which is in Gippsland, which is about 85 kilometres or so to the east of Melbourne.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, in the country.
Nice.
I used to live in Melbourne. Sorry?
Very nice. That's on my bucket list. I've always wanted to visit.
Gippsland is a great place. Yeah. What else? What else can I say about myself? I don't know. That's about it for the moment.
Well, good. Glad to have you. This is great to get to know everybody. Who's still left that we haven't said hi to?
Julian.
Who?
No sound.
Who are you saying, Rob?
Julian, no sound.
Julian.
Okay. Can you try me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
Perfect. Sorry, it was taking my loudspeakers as an input mic, so
okay.
I'm here now. Right. You can tell from the accent, another Brit. Actually, I'm in Switzerland, so we're 1500 afternoon time. So this southern hemisphere lark is good for me. So I like that. My background, going back to childhood, my father was a science teacher, and I used to get encouraged to collect caterpillars and all sorts of things. So my background is entomology. I actually studied or animal zoology at university, but shortly afterwards switched to computing as can make a better living on it, and that's where I've been ever since. In terms of photography, it was interesting to combine the interest in nature with taking photos in my student time, starting off with a Zenit E camera for those who remember the old Russian stuff with a screw thread, and then moved on to Pentax, the MX and LX with macro lenses and bellows and things. One of the big differences obviously now is with stacking, you can get the focusing sorted out, which was one of the big things that caused problems for me when we were doing photos for insect work and using bellows at uni. We had some quite nice lighting systems, but we still couldn't get the depth of field on the lenses. So it's quite a revelation now, more or less coming back to insect photography. Not retired, but I'm sort of interested in building up, ready for retirement. So I'm trying to relearn the entomology side of things. work out which scientific names they've changed, because they seem to be having a habit of changing loads of scientific names from what they used to be when I knew them. And basically learning. The reason I found you and this site was looking actually for the stack shot, the rail videos, and obviously you're high up on the hits with YouTube on that. And it was a matter of starting there and then following your website from there onwards and subscribing. So this is the first actual podcast I've participated in with you. Up till now, it's been looking at your videos and the Patreon stuff. So that's where I am.
I'm glad that you came down and joined in this. It is a great way to connect, and I want it to become more of a two-way street for us to solve problems and talk about various issues in our own photography, and that's we're moving in that direction. So I'm glad you're here and glad I got to meet you. I wondered where you were from. I'll explain later. I saw that you were from Switzerland, but you didn't sound Swiss. I'm easily confused at this time of day.
No, just
all right. I think that is everybody who. Have I missed anybody? Nope. Al, say hi. You might not be able to because before your microphone wasn't working. Al, you there?
He is still muted.
Yeah. Al has he's in Canada, and he's had problems with his microphone in the past, and that might be what's going on. I'll talk to him later on today. And that, I think, is everybody. If I have forgotten or missed anybody, then my apologies, and we'll catch up with you next time. Coming up next is we have a week off, don't we? Because there's a 5th weekend this month. What's next? Yeah, it's the 30th next Saturday. So we're not doing anything next Saturday. And then on the 10th, the 13th, I beg your pardon, we have Alison Pollock. For all you fungus people, please try to be there. If you can't make it, definitely watch the video. She's got a wonderful presentation. It's going to be a very lively talk. Rick Littlefield will be joining me to interview her. And I have looked at her slides, and you definitely want to see this slime mold stuff. It's incredible. All right. Anything from anybody else?
Alan, is she will that be a Northern Hemisphere session?
Yes, I meant to explain that. When I have a guest like Steve Axford, I'm hoping that I'll be able to get on shortly thereafter. Whenever I have a guest, whatever hemisphere they're in, they get to choose the venue. And it just so happens that 3 in a row are Northern Hemisphere. And so that's the way the only fair way I could figure it out. The only way I could get people to come on was to tell them, no, you don't have to be here at 4 o'clock in the morning. So
what platform will they be on, Alan?
Well, that's what I am working on. As soon as I get off this call today, I'm going to start doing some more research to find out who can handle the volume, because we can't do it in this venue. This is a small group chat venue. I need something that'll take hundreds, because both of these people are going to be bringing large audiences with them. So I'm thinking YouTube or Vimeo or Twitch. But possibly Discord. I don't know. I'm actually
Discord, Alan. Are you considering any other platform besides Discord?
Yeah, YouTube, Vimeo, and Twitch. And of those, Discord is the least likely. For anybody who happens to be around in the afternoon on Monday, the whatever Monday is, the 25th, if you follow me on YouTube, you're going to get an announcement. If you're set up to hear announcements from my channel, that I'm going to be doing a live stream on Monday. It's unannounced. You're the only people who know about it. I'm just going to go on and check out the system and I'll show some pictures and some videos and chat with anybody who shows up. It's just to test out the system and see if I can handle it with the volume. So that will be when I determine which platform we're using going forward. But you'll know about it because I'll send you a Patreon notice of what we're doing. Does anybody have any?
I would just say two parting notes. There's been two people so far that said they're working on a hobby photography for retirement. I've been retired 12 years, and it's very, very important to have something to occupy 100% of your time in retirement. So I think that's a great step. Photography is wonderful for that. And with so many people from Australia, I'd just say congratulations to you all on winning the Open, and Cameron Smith. He's quite a character, and I'm sure he's very popular down there.
He sure is.
Open what?
Golf.
The Open golf outing from Scotland.
Yeah. Who won?
Yeah.
Cameron Smith, the guy with a mullet hairdo from Australia.
Never heard of him. A
lot of people had him. A wonderful individual with a long mullet hairdo.
And great golfing skills.
Oh, I imagine so. It was at St. Andrews this year, wasn't it? It was.
Yes.
Hey, Alan, I ran across an internet site you might want to check out. It's where you can post some macro pictures.
Yeah.
It's called AWPic, YOUPIC. A friend of mine from the local photo thing up in Cartersville pointed me that way, and they have some pretty nice images on there of all sorts of stuff. So
did they have
post anything from landscapes to everything, but they have a macro category.
Do they have strict posting rules as far as
no nude flies? No nude flies.
No nude flies. I'm looking for a place to post some stuff, but I'm getting fed up with being told by people to list my blood type and everything with the photograph. It just is.
This seems to be not that way. I check it out. It looks like it's pretty good.
I will check it out today. All right, guys. Any feedback on the channel? Is there anything you're not seeing enough of, seeing too much of? Bud, you wanted more advanced stuff. Is this advanced enough? What we're doing?
Negative.
Negative. Okay. Well,
let me put it this way, Alan. I just hook up the fly to a Van de Graaff generator to see if I could get the hairs to stand up.
That sounds like something I'd do. I actually, did anybody see my Weevil drying device?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. I all did.
Did anybody think I was being serious? Because I was being deadly serious about that. I have come.
Alan, I've been doing that for 6 months.
Yeah, I know you have, but not in a tunnel, not in a wind tunnel.
Not in a tunnel. No, you know what I found is those little spray things you get with WD-40, those little plastic tube things. You stick it in the end you stick it in the end of the tubing that comes with a an aquarium pump.
Yeah,
and you can use that thing like a brush, and it's amazing because it really defines the air column.
I had to be hands-free so I could film it.
Got it.
As the change was happening. But anyway, the next thing I invented is a vibration detector that actually fits on your specimen stage. And it's a weighted insect pin, a 4-0 insect pin that oscillates sympathetically. And I have different weights for different objectives. And I have tuned them to where if you can see the thing oscillating, that is enough to blur the picture. So it gives you a real-time way of checking your rig to make sure there is nothing in the environment that's causing a vibration. If there is, you stop and fix it until you have until the meter shows no vibration. Don't bother. it has drastically cut down on the number of bad stacks I'm getting from the air conditioner. Now I need to actually calculate some numbers about how much vibration that is. Do we have any physicists who understand that kind of thing?
Alan, I'm not a physicist, but there's several apps for the iPhone that will show you vibration. They're free downloads.
What?
Yep.
Oh crap, I didn't need to invent that thing. Oh well.
I mean, the one you're doing is perfect because you're looking through the lens, but if you want to put something on the stage, use it for audio. And so you can put it on a tabletop and
it's just the accelerometer, right?
Yeah, it's sort of like that, yeah.
I never thought about using the phone. I'll back to the drawing board then. Okay. I was so excited about that. I'll invent something else. All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming and staying, and we'll keep doing what we're doing. And for those of you who are following along, episode 4 of the 20X series is coming out at the beginning of the week, and I have already got 5 and 6 ready to go. So they'll follow shortly thereafter.
Nice meeting
Just
you.
the last note to you, Alan. I would second Bud in saying that I would like it to be a little more advanced. And the other thing is that, I try and support you as best I can. I'm going to be in Africa for like the next 3 weeks. So I'll be out of these meetings.
Well, they're going to be recorded and you're going to miss Alison Pollock. Watch it when you get back.
I'll watch it.
Okay.
I'll watch it.
That's going to be,
I really want to see her fungus.
She has got some amazing pictures, and I spent hours with her yesterday going through everything, and you're going to love it. So when you get back, watch that. Have a safe trip, and stay away from lions. I hear they're dangerous.
And yellow fever.
Yeah, that's even more dangerous, right? All right, guys.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you.
See you guys. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.